evidence or the evidence they bring as an evidence? Which one?
Saying do your research.
No, I'm asking you a question.
Give me the Hebrew of the name.
So if
Isa.
I now bring,
simple question.
If I now bring a scholar
Simple question,
who says Jesus did not exist, would you accept that as evidence?
Okay, do you agree Jesus had a Hebrew name?
Listen.
Do you agree Jesus had a Hebrew name?
Look, we have wasted
yes, you've wasted
enough time
I've asked
with
a simple
you.
question.
With you.
What is the Hebrew of Isa? Simple.
Simple question, Mansur.
Simple question. What is the Hebrew of Isa?
That's it.
Hang on.
That's all I want to translate.
I said, Isa.
How can you not know?
Listen.
No.
We don't have any Hebrew.
It's etymologically, if we look at a name, any Arabic name, because Hebrew all Semitic languages, so we can trace one from the other.
So
that's what
all
linguists
names
do.
must translate then, you're saying there must be equivalents of all names in all of these Semitic languages?
Of course.
Is that your point?
Yes. Look at all your prophets.
Based
if you have Yusuf,
based on,
they all, because they're all very similar. That's why when the Hebrew language died, what did they use? They used the Arabic to help revive the dead language.
They're close.
Exactly.
But what we're saying
so
is you're saying that if there's a Hebrew version, or if there's an Arabic version, it necessitates that there's a Hebrew version. First off, don't we all acknowledge that Jesus spoke Aramaic?
Do you know why it necessitates it? Because that was his name.
Wait, but we
so
say that
Jesus.
It
had to be Hebrew.
But we say that Jesus spoke Aramaic.
What language did the mother of Jesus speak?
But the prophets.
Excuse me.
Hebrew.
What language did she speak, and what language did she name her child?
It's different because in Aramaic, and we have the.
Because why bring Hebrew in?
Yeshua.
Hang on. Do you see the point, Isa?
The Eastern Syriacs pronounce his
name If the mother of Christ spoke Aramaic, the language she would have named her child Christ would be Aramaic. So what is the name of Christ in Aramaic?
No, it's kind of like if you speak Tweet, you're gonna name your child. If you're in a community,
that's why this discussion is really waste of time. You have no evidence for anything, just guesswork and assumption. And you want to say, oh, the Quran has a name which is different.
Even they all had Hebrew names. So you're telling me the only person was Jesus that had an Aramaic name? No, they all had Hebrew names.
Who said
because
that?
Because it was. Shall we go back to the scholars?
So you accept the scholars?
If we're talking about
do you accept the scholars
on the name of Jesus,
wait. Do you accept the scholars who are experts in the field?
Make your point.
I'm asking you the question. So admit and confess, whatever. Do you accept scholars who are experts in their field, and as when they provide evidence?
Make your point.
No, I want you to answer the question. Yes, I accept, or no, I don't accept.
Make your point.
I think the point is more about consistency.
Why are you so inconsistent?
Make your point.
Okay, so do you accept the scholars who are experts in their field of expertise?
In general, yes.
In general, good. So if you have an expert, Christian scholar, right? Not Christian scholar, a scholar in Christian history, who says Jesus doesn't exist, would you accept it?
Consensus.
So now it's not about scholarship, it's about consensus.
Because the consensus is based.
Do you see how the game changes? Your standard of evidence shifts.
Because one person can say anything.
I have to go on prayer, sir. Look,
what's your definition? Sorry, bro, I don't even want to.
I have to go on prayer, sir.
So it will be based on the evidence.
I want something, bro.
1 hour.
Yes.
I've asked them a simple question.
I've answered so many times. Of course, it came this way and it went that way.
Before you go off, give me the Hebrew name of Isa.
I said it's a guesswork. Do you want my guesswork?
So are you telling me
it's a guesswork.
You cannot translate Arabic back into the Hebrew?
No. Look.
Is that what you're telling me?
Let me repeat to you again.
Is that what you're telling
me?
One
more time. Can you not put that in my face, please?
You can't answer simple questions. Every single name of a prophet can be translated back into the Hebrew.
Then don't damage my art.
But for some reason, he can't give me the Hebrew name of Isa.
Right, listen. When we're talking about the names of people...
Why can't you give me the Hebrew name?
Are you not listening? I said, I cannot be certain...
Because the Israelites had Hebrew names.
Well, maybe the issue is that the New Testament is in Koine Greek.
Brother,
that's number one.
Brother, I really have to go pray an answer. Now, if this is so important, the name of God, a name of a person, right?
A simple question.
What is the name of God in Hebrew pronounced exactly?
Because how can you say a Hebrew name has been lost?
Yeah. Is it Yahushua? Is it Yahya? Is it Ihe? Is it Yahuwah?
They look at the Because names, for example, are based on the consonants. So then they trace it back to the origin.
But does he not have a point though? When we're talking about ego Amy and the Hebrew pronunciation of the name of God.
But that's
and we don't find that consistent in the Old Testament. I'm sorry, in the New Testament we don't find it. Is that not point?
They use the name like Theos and stuff like that. But the thing is, we're talking about a Hebrew name.
Right. And I'm saying, but we're talking about people that spoke Aramaic.
Yes.
Right. So we're saying that the general terms, or the general people were speaking Aramaic at the time.
Yes.
So why would they go back and use Hebrew names?
Because, for example,
language?
You're Ghanaian.
Yeah.
You can be born here, but your parents will still give you a Ghanaian name because they hold on to that heritage.
Right.
God was the one that named him, so it didn't matter what.
God is the one that.
Yes.
Okay.
In the Quran and in the Bible, God gives Hebrew names.
In the Quran, God didn't name him.
He did. He told Mary what his name would be. Isa, the Messiah. I can get the reference. So this is obviously the same as the Bible.
Can you co-sign that, Anwar? That Allah gave the name, because I know He gave Yahweh. I don't know about Him giving Isa.
Because the name Yeshua actually comes from the name Yahweh. Yahweh saves. That's why when you ask Jews, sometimes they'll say Joshua. Moses' companion was supposed to be the Messiah, but Christians say that's the wrong.
But even what do they call it? The
Tetragrammaton.
That name is what the YHWH. Right, but even that wasn't pronounced.
Okay.
So how we put vowels on that name?
Yes.
And how are we certain that it's Yahweh or Yahushua or whatever other derivative of the word that you have?
So, for example, in the Old Testament, I can find a reference. Yeshua's name, the companion of Moses, his original name was Hosea or something like that.
Okay.
Moses renamed him after that encounter as Yeshua, which would be confirmation that Moses heard the name of God because it means Yahweh saves. So this is where the origin of the name comes from. Yes, because he was one of the 12 spies that went into Canada, and then Moses renamed him.
Was he there on the mount with Moses?
What's that got to do with anything? Moses gave him the name.
You said he was a companion.
Yeah, companion. What's a companion? He doesn't have to be there on the mountain.
Well, I'm just asking you, was he there?
No, not on the mountain. He wasn't in the mountain when he was with the Israelites.
And Moses named him what?
Yeshua.
Yes, and that's in the Old Testament.
Yes. If you want me to get the reference, I'll find the reference.
No, I'm taking your word.
Yes, that's in the Old Testament.
Yeshua.
Yeah.
The first time I heard it, but I think it was.
It's in Numbers.
Numbers.
Yeah, Book of Numbers.
Right.
Numbers 23:23.
If I said to you that Moses never wrote anything, what would you say?
Well, I would say.
Any development so far?
That's another conversation.
You did ask a question.
What languages was God speaking to Adam?
I've asked a simple question.
What is the name of Adam in the original language?
What does Isa translate to in Hebrew? That's all I've asked.
I told you, it's a guesswork.
Why is it guesswork?
Because you have no evidence to substantiate.
This debate.
But what are you leading to? What would be the significance of?
Because this is the thing.
Like, what's the end goal? Yeah.
Because you weren't here from the beginning. We have authentic eyewitness report from the Old Testament because they named Jesus.
No, you don't. We never went there.
Jesus.
There is no.
Okay.
Was Moses a first-hand witness to creation? That's what he's claiming.
Now this is the thing. Jesus had the same name as the companion of Moses, Yeshua.
Wait. Based on the Bible, you're saying that he's got the same name.
We start from the Bible,
right?
Because in the Greek, they writ both of them in the same in Greek as Jesus. Jesus.
Right.
So we must then logically conclude that they had the same name.
Right.
Then we go to the Islamic literature. There's a hadith in Tirmidhi, however you say it. It calls him Yusha bin Nun. So we get a confirmation of the name. So even from the Islamic literature, we can convert that name into Hebrew, which will give us Yeshua.
How have you done that? Because you only have one example now.
In etymology, it's based on the consonants of the word. So we didn't have vowelizations. So etymologists will look at how the word is. So it's yod.
From one word. From one example.
Yod, shin, vav, and aleph. That is how you spell the name.
From one example, you generalize.
Okay.
But you know that you shall.
According to Mansur, I've generalized, and so have all the Western scholars.
But
Have you read them?
bro. You know,
Again,
Have you read the scholars?
Bring me
Wait, have you read the scholars?
This is
Excuse me, excuse me.
this is
Have you
the
read
challenge
the
I'm
scholars?
going to make to Mansur.
Have you read the
Next
scholars?
week, bring me one scholar.
Excuse me.
Who agrees with you?
One moment.
scholar.
One moment.
That's all I ask for.
The name is guesswork.
Just one moment. Which scholars have you read?
That's all I'm asking. Next
Excuse
week,
me.
come
Hang
back
on,
to
hang
me
on.
and
Wait a
this
moment.
debate is over.
Listen.
Because you're going to
Listen.
go round in circles.
No, no, you're not listening.
We'll continue this next
Hang
week.
on, hang on.
We'll continue next week.
Which scholar have you read?
We'll continue this next week. You
Answer
haven't
it.
read any scholars.
Have you?
I've
Have
just
you?
given you the
Have you
Braille
read?
encyclopedia. That's good enough.
But the
for now.
encyclopedia of the Quran. That's nothing to
If
do with
you
Hebrew
want to-
Bible.
If you want to debate,
Excuse me.
bring your evidence.
Listen.
One scholar.
The
and I'll bring
debate
the
so
scholar.
far, witnessed by
I
our
wanna
uncle
understand
here,
as well.
clearly demonstrates that you have an issue with comprehension.
Okay.
Do you know what that means? Let me explain
I've
what it
asked
means.
you
Let me
to give
explain
me the
what.
Hebrew
Let me explain what it
of
means.
Isa. You cannot. Your
Let me
comprehension.
let
must
me
be worse than mine.
explain to you. As you have a memory problem too. I have said so many times, it is a guesswork, and I don't know for certain. Just like,
What are you
listen,
talking about? If
just
you
like,
have-
let
if
me
you have a
finish.
Ghanaian name,
Let me
you can
finish.
translate into English.
Let me finish.
Or
Just like,
you give an equivalent because names are based on meanings, especially etymology.
Okay, but then
not always.
Right,
Yes,
but
if
where
it's
would
a
you get the
Semitic-
where would you get the reference from?
if
You
it's
get
a-
it from a Hebrew
So-
speaking people.
Yes,
So
if
who
it's a
are the
Semitic-
Hebrew speaking people
if it's
at
a-
the time?
If it's a Semitic language, because Arabic and Hebrew are so close,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's very easy.
And Aramaic as
So
well.
you
Yeah.
can actually translate Isa into a Hebrew name. That name is Esau.
listen. What does the Quran say about Isa?
Ahmed did
Hang
that.
on, hang on,
If you go and
hang on.
research Ahmed did
Wait a
that,
moment.
He said Jesus' name was Esau.
What does the Quran say about Isa? Is he God? Or is he a servant of God?
What is your point?
What does the Quran say? Those who say Isa is God, where are they going to end up? Heaven or hell?
Who's Isa?
In the Quran.
Who's Isa?
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know
Good,
who
let
Isa
me tell you. This Isa in the Quran was a messenger sent to Bani Israel who did not have a... Let me tell you so you can understand who he is. That's the problem. You don't know who Isa is. So let me tell you.
Yes.
This Isa was a servant messenger, Masih, that God appointed to the Bani Israel to bring them back to the worship of Allah alone. And the people at that time who were Christians, they understood this Isa is the Isa that was spoken of in the Gospels. So they didn't have a problem, but you don't speak Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic, now have a problem. Those people, they were living and using the same language that the Quran is in, Arabic Christians, Arabic speaking Christians. They didn't say, oh, who is Isa? They realized who Isa is. You make so many claims based on assumption and guesswork. Look, do you really believe God spoke to Hebrew with Adam and Eve? Do you really believe that?
That's another
No, it's not, because now you're going to claim the name of Adam, the original name was Adam. Is it? Did God speak Hebrew to Adam?
Did he speak Arabic?
I'm asking you, what language did he speak?
Did he speak Arabic?
I don't know.
Okay,
Personally.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
So, can you claim it's Hebrew?
I don't know.
Good. What's the name of
We're talking
Adam?
about the name.
Okay.
We're talking
You
about
just say
the
all the
name
names of the
of
Look,
prophets
look.
are...
I'm not getting into
There
that
are
debate.
opinions where
Okay.
the original language is Arabic. Personally, I haven't researched this into this matter.
Okay.
What I'm asking
I'm
you is...
asking you to research.
What I am
Come
asking...
again next
No, I'm asking about the name of
You're
Adam.
the one
Adam.
who will do your scholarly research. and
Listen
name one scholar
carefully.
that agrees with you.
I am asking you,
I'm asking
is
you
the
to pick one
name of
scholar
Adam
that agrees with you.
original name?
Only one scholar that
I'm going to
agrees
ask you,
with
what's
you.
our debate?
Is
on
Adam the name
If
of
you want to
Adam?
debate Adam's name next week, we can do that.
Do that
Today
then.
was about the name
Do that.
Isa.
Okay.
So do your research.
I've done my
and
research.
come back.
The name
No,
I've
no,
done
no.
my research.
Show him, bring me one scholar that agrees with you.
Agrees with what?
Not
I don't-
whatever
look,
claims
look.
you're making.
My evidence
Bring-
is not based on scholars.
Okay.
Your evidence seems to be this
Okay.
logical fallacy called appealing to scholars.
you-
instead of
appealing to
providing,
scholars.
instead of evidence, hang on.
Okay.
Instead of look. Do you believe in evolution, which is a consensus scholars' opinion? Do you believe in evolution? That man came
That's
from.
another discussion. That's a tangent.
Answer it.
That's a
Be a
tangent.
man of integrity
That is a
and answer it.
tangent. That's
Do you
part
believe in
of
evolution?
Conversation today.
No, no.
That's
I want
not
to
our
know
conversation
whether you're a
today.
man of integrity
You're
or not.
bringing red herring.
No.
Things that
I
have
want
nothing
to
do with our
know
discussion.
whether you have integrity in your heart.
Again.
You claim, I believe in the consensus of the scholars.
When we are talking
When it
about,
comes to evolution,
talking about evolution,
do you accept the
that
consensus
debate
of the
is about
scholars?
the name of
Excuse me.
Isa.
It is
We are talking
about
the name of Isa, not
methodology.
What's our
Methodology.
debate about
The scholar methodology.
Evolution?
Methodology. You provide.
an evidence.
You provide evidence based on a method. Your method is scholars. Consensus
I have
scholars.
the evidence of the scholar. That's what he's saying.
I've told
Do you
him,
understand what he's coming from?
I've given him the references.
Do you understand his point?
Go to read Josephus.
He's not even willing to entertain this thought.
The thing is, I've shown him.
Listen,
from
no
the
wonder there's a
Islamic
comprehension problem.
He doesn't. You're just trying to wiggle.
I am
out.
saying, in terms of the methodology that we are using to arrive at the correct answer, what the name was in the language that was given to him by his mother,
Okay.
we need to understand what constitutes evidence.
Okay.
You seem to present evidence is when the scholars collectively agree.
My evidence
instead
is
of
the Quran. We have the name Isa.
Really?
We will translate it back into Hebrew. We can start with the Quran.
Why do you have to translate it back? You don't have to translate it back.
It's a Semitic, because he was given a Hebrew name that has been translated into
Does
Arabic.
the Quran say?
And then we can go
Hang
back
on.
from the Arabic
When
back
the-
into Hebrew.
when the Quran-
It wasn't pronounced as Isa.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. I'm saying,
What
what
I'm
was the
saying,
Hebrew? That's what I've asked.
Names
Simple.
usually are not
What-
translated. Names
Semitic
are-
languages
but
are
they are-
almost.
Did you hear what Jankul is saying?
Okay.
Names
What, of which
are
languages?
not any language.
Semitic languages?
Any language.
If someone in Chinese called Yongmi, he will be here Yongmi as well.
Okay.
I'm not gonna
So are you
translate.
making a claim that you cannot translate from the Arabic?
Why should
back
you?
into
Is the
Hebrew?
question.
No, what I'm claiming that.
And that's what I've asked for, the Hebrew
what
name.
I'm saying names
I'm
should
asking-
not be translated.
Sorry, I just want to ask again. What is the goal at the end of this?
Etymologically, you can translate.
Underlying this is the Quran gets it wrong. Right?
Yes.
That is the assumption. He says yes. But we know that your evidence is based on zilch.
Wait.
No evidence. Assumptions,
He's questioning my
ignorance,
methodology. I
guesswork.
can show you all your Islamic scholars that come out with different presumptions.
All my
Why
scholars.
can they?
Personally, bro.
I've given you.
Personally, bro. I think this thing is-
Al-Qasidi.
I can give you a scholar who says Jesus doesn't exist. Would you accept it?
So I'm asking you, why
Would you
is it
accept?
your own Islamic scholars from Tafsir cannot even
Let me
translate
tell
it
you.
into Hebrew?
But listen,
Scholars
you
have
to understand,
opinions.
We
We are interested in
we
evidence.
don't claim every.
Yeah,
just
but-
because a scholar comes and says there's something,
Yeah,
it doesn't
but-
mean we stick to it or it's our
That's
scholar
fine.
or
But why
we
is it
accept
they
it.
don't know the Hebrew name? It should be a very simple.
Maybe because they're not. Maybe because they're not experts in Hebrew. Maybe they maybe.
Just observe it. How have you established the Hebrew name?
How I establish
How have you established
By
the-
guesswork.
This is the,
no,
because just give my take and then please tell me.
because I'd have to go back to the beginning because it's been a long conversation.
No, I'm not going to carry on with him. I'm not going to carry on with him.
I'm here. No,
I'm
he
not
can
going to carry on
he
with
can
this.
show me one scholar next week that agrees with him. I'll bring some scholars.
I'm not interested. You know why I'm not interested?
Because you're on
I
the-
told you. No.
Well, give me
Oh
the
yeah.
Hebrew.
Do you know why I'm going to run away from you and your
Anyway,
method?
This debate
Because
is over
Can we get Baba?
yes,
can't
it's
answer my
over.
question.
You know why it's
Earlier,
over?
can't answer my question.
Because
Earlier, mentioned
you
there's a
are
consensus.
inconsistent in your methodology.
I just want to ask him a point regarding the consensus bit.
Yeah.
You said there's a consensus of scholars. Yeah?
Yes.
Is there anywhere I can find a charter, of all biblical scholars saying this is the following point? We all agree,
About his
undersigned, regarding his name. How would we prove consensus?
Well, then,
And if there was one that deviated from the
Again,
consensus,
Yeah, would that
be a
break
valid-
it? Yeah.
Would it be a valid point?
So, in terms of historicity, we cannot always prove things empirically. We have to gather the collective evidence and come up to the best conclusion.
So sometimes you must do
obviously,
deductions,
so you
yeah.
understand,
Right.
we cannot prove.
Like someone says,
empirically-
Jesus doesn't exist
So when we
based
go to
on the
Talmud,
evidence.
this is from the Jewish tradition. When we go to Josephus, he wrote in Greek. We have the Bible, so we have 3 different sources.
Right.
All he's done is question the sources.
I didn't question. I analyzed them, and I showed Talmud. You haven't got a clue when it's dated. And Talmud. What language was Talmud written in? You said much later, so that's not evidence at all. Josephus wrote in Hebrew or Greek.
Okay. So
What language is written?
We have 3
No, your
different
evidence
sources.
is something that can be brushed aside in the under the carpet.
Josephus.
Joseph-
and the scripture.
What language did Josephus write in?
Josephus wrote in Greek though.
Yes.
So it's not an evidence.
And it says the Hebrew name in his Greek writing.
But we can then learn what was the Hebrew name of the Greek.
So what?
Because etymology
Back
is
to the
very
same
simple.
thing.
So we're
Etymology-
looking at Josephus and
what
then
you-
reverse engineering the name from
Yes,
Josephus.
because
Okay.
this is what we have. Why we have etymology. How we discover the.
Do you know what
meaning of
etymology
names.
is?
What is it?
Do you know?
Explain.
No, I'm not going to
No,
explain.
no.
Do you know?
I know. If
Good,
you disagree-
good. So you know now.
Yes.
The etymology of names, right?
Yes.
So when you have a name like
Yeshua.
Jesus.
Because there was
Wait,
no shin.
Wait.
We've been around this before.
Wait.
So
Jesus.
you're going around.
Excuse
If you
me.
want to debate,
Listen.
bring your
Listen.
facts next
Listen.
week and we'll discuss it.
Jesus, right? Jesus. Why do you have an extra sigma at the end?
Again, if you want to debate this next
Why
week,
don't you answer? You know etymology, you said.
bring.
Did you not
next
just claim that you know etymology?
Next
So
week,
why? Excuse
if you
me.
want to bring your
Excuse me.
sources,
Now,
if you want to bring
you
your sources,
claimed you know etymology.
bring your sources,
You claim Paperboy. That's
to
his
bring
name that you
your
want to go
sources.
by. You claimed you know etymology.
You
Why is there extra sound at the end?
You couldn't answer my question.
Excuse me.
What-
Why
to
is
me,
there an
Hebrew name-
extra
He's
sound at
making
the end?
demands of me.
You
Answer my
know
question
etymology. You claim.
comprehensively. I asked you what was the Hebrew.
You know what?
It's guesswork.
You
though.
are-
He's mentioned
I'm
that.
asking him.
He said it's
It's not
guesswork.
guess.
Setting up a method here, yeah,
Okay.
of how you establish the truth. They're saying if there's a consensus or a scholarly statement, that's you have to be consistent with that.
Okay.
If I now bring, okay, let's say for example, for argument's sake, you won this discussion, yeah, and we're gonna run away, we're gonna come back. If another person comes now and says the same thing to you, is there a consensus that John wrote John, or is a consensus that John kind of exaggerated and spiced up Jesus' writings, and it's not written by early thing?
Well, if you want that debate, we'll do
No,
another
no.
time.
Hear him out.
If we want a debate on that, we'll have a debate.
You're not even
another
listening,
time.
are you? You're not even listening.
That's not my claim. That's not my claim.
Okay.
I'm saying if there was a consensus on that, would you accept it?
We'll have a debate on that.
No, no. Look, I know you wouldn't accept it.
That's all. He,
I know
We'll
you
have a
wouldn't
debate.
he
on
doesn't
that.
believe in
We will
consistency.
have a debate on it.
Look, let's give.
No wonder people don't want to talk to you.
We will have a
No
debate
wonder.
on it
No wonder.
because we will look
No
at
wonder.
or what they say.
Inconsistent from the beginning to end.
Prince, we live in a materialistic world,
Yes.
yeah? Atheism is the base assumption in most academic institutions.
Yes.
In,
The reason why it's
no,
different.
hear my
just
point,
say
hear my point, hear my point.
Because
In
we
a
will have to
hundred-
look at
look,
internal and external evidence to verify
This is
that.
the thing.
He has not
So it's
even
nothing about
decided-
consensus.
No,
You
no,
understand
no.
the point? You understand the point?
Yeah.
I understood the point he was getting at. Maybe you misunderstood because it was a bit of it was a bit heated, yeah? What he's saying is that the statement of a scholar is only as strong as the evidence he provides. That's in essence that we were saying.
Exactly.
So that's what he was saying. So you're quoting Brill.
Yes.
Maybe even if you come with the name of the guy who wrote the thing, yeah? What's his evidence?
Again, he references historical evidence.
Okay, so
What are they?
So again,
And we
is
can
it-
analyze them.
That's Talmud.
so the Talmud.
We
what was it written?
we debunk Talmud because it's not as evidence.
It wasn't-
It was compiled over centuries.
Yeah, and it wasn't fluid.
So it is
it
not
was
an
fluid.
evidence.
It was fluid.
So it's not evidence.
When did,
Now-
when, hang on,
now-
hang
now
on.
listen to this.
When did the Talmud become
Now
solidified?
this is what I've said. Historical.
Prince, let's go into the evidence.
Historical,
Very shaky evidence. Not even evidence at all.
Historically, historians look at
And that's what we're doing
What
now.
is most likely
We're
is
looking
true.
at it now. When did,
Yes.
when did the Talmud become a solidified document
It was
and
an
not
oral
fluid?
tradition.
Yeah, okay. When did it become solidified?
doesn't matter. Because if
Actually, why it does matter?
because when we look at the hadith, it was based on oral tradition. Do we have any earliest? Do we have any earliest manuscripts for hadith?
We have the Sahih of
What is the earliest? What is the earliest? What is the
the
earliest?
student of Abu Hurairah.
What is the
So
earliest?
that's it.
Malik.
So instead
What is the
of
evidence
discussing the
of-
evidence itself,
Bin Munabbih.
Yeah, what is that
Hammam
dated
ibn
to?
bin Munabbih.
Yeah, what is that dated to?
The dating is
Brother,
but
we're not discussing hadith.
No, no.
We are discussing the nature of evidence.
After the Prophet
Look how inconsistent
was
you
the first
are.
manuscript.
You know, shame on you
We don't do
people.
it by
No,
manuscript.
but
Shame on you.
So we.
Even
Because you're saying your hadith information is reliable from an oral tradition.
Yes.
I'm saying the Talmud was the same. It doesn't matter when it was written. How can you have a double
I hear your
standard?
claim.
for the Talmud?
Wallahi, I hear your claim.
You have to have the
I hear your
same
claim,
standard.
Prince. I hear your claim. But we study hadith, yeah? And we've looked at, you know what the ethics of the fathers are? Hikvat avim, you know what that is? That's the ethics of the fathers. This is basically the chain of transmission that the Jews give for their teachers from Moses. If you open it's called the ethics of the fathers. Okay, this is actually their isnad. Do you know what isnad is? The chain of transmission.
Chain
that
of
Muslims use.
transmission.
Okay, so this is their isnad. So they said that Moses revealed from Sinai, and he gave to the elders of Israel, and they spoke to the men of the great assembly, and then Simon the righteous got it from so and so and so and so. And they mentioned the elders of the assembly. Who are they? No, this is why it's important. You see why
Do you
it's
know
important?
why it's not the same?
No, this is
Do you know why yours is just a hearsay, wishy-washy belief,
If we wanted to
fine.
discuss
compared
next
to
week,
solid
that's
evidence
fine.
that we have for the
If
hadith?
we- Because I've made my point, I want you to go and read it. Find me
but
one
we're looking
scholar.
at
and
I'm
we'll
not interested.
rediscuss it.
looking
Not
at
interested
evidence.
because you
Yeah,
don't have a
I've been discussing
method.
this for too
No,
long.
no,
You don't have a
He
consistent method.
hasn't-
Ask this. Okay, you have been with all this. Hang on. No. Show some respect to this
Adinde.
gentleman. Wait.
Adinde.
Show some
I've
respect to
shown
this
you-
gentleman. No. Show some respect.
Allow
No.
him to adjudicate.
You have been observing. Don't put. Don't put camera on his face. Why don't you hear this? Why are we going away? You should have heard an observer who'd been listening.
because you're not Muslim, you're not Christian, from what I've gathered from before speaking to you, what's your intake on the evidence that's been dealt with?
The evidence. What he's trying to say, and he's coming from, I tried to pick him up on the discussion about Moses and Exodus, but I'm coming from a different point about the evidence about Moses writing according to the Bible, if you read it, Moses never wrote the first 5 books according to the Bible, because at the end, it tells you clearly.
Moses died and was buried there. Yeah.
And some of them try to explain it in terms of prophecy.
Yeah.
You don't prophesy in the past tense.
Exactly.
You prophesy in future tense.
Exactly.
And they would swear blind.
Yeah.
That Joshua, some of them claim Joshua wrote it.
Yeah, but that's only a claim.
Yeah.
It would be nice if Joshua wrote it, but how do we know Joshua wrote it? So I understand your point.
Yeah.
I understand your point. In terms of what he said about quoting from a scholar, did you get that part? If you, I can quote a scholar for anything.
Yeah, you can quote a scholar. If you want to believe what a scholar, people pick a scholars.
Yeah.
You can cherry pick scholars. So what's important is the evidence itself. Yeah. So obviously it's very difficult to have a conversation with these Christians with an evangelical mindset where they are only interested in their scholars who believes Christ died for their sins.
And if you quote the same scholars that said that John was an exaggeration and not actually
they're not going to accept him.
They're
going to throw him outside. You know, on their scholarship.
Arab Christians was surprised or upset by the name of Isa.
They never disputed.
Not only that, the Prophet's wife, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khadija, presumably she was Christian. Her uncle was one of those Rahab as well. I mean, she didn't criticize the name. She told them the name is wrong.
Because this was engaging with the Christians of the time.
Yeah.
So how can it be a problem?
This is such an out of desperation to move the discussion from the Tawheed to something peripheral. That's what they always try to do. You know, why they pick up who? Hashim, me, you, few people. Why? Because if they can interrupt us from discussing the real thing and busy is, look how much time we spend in here, right? Okay? And how did we even benefit from this discussion? That he's been so inconsistent in methodology, and then he wants to still say, name.
Their thing is reactionary.
May Allah guide us all.
I mean, their thing is pure reactionary. If they was to